welcome back to our series on Let's Talk About It. And today is a very special day. I'm with my esteemed colleague, Jody Sutherland, and we're going to talk about Jody's favorite subject, which is the corrective action system. Mm-hmm. Before we get started, Jody, let me just say, from an auditing perspective, this is the highest probability for failure in any company. So if your corrective action system isn't fabulous, you're with good company. Right. But Jody, what have you seen too from a high level perspective with respect to corrective action? Because I'm usually throwing Jody into the mix to do some training for me.
Yeah, it is my favorite area. I think it's the biggest area where you can find the biggest bang for your buck as far as improving your QMS. But what I find is organizations tend to be very overwhelmed. We throw all of these non-conformances at them, and they're like, well, what do I do now? What's next? So they get all overwhelmed. They don't understand what's expected of them, what the actual process is, and what they need to do to close it out. And make sure it's effective.
And let's face it, people are either spending too much time or not enough time. But definitely when you sit down to do that corrective action, you need to focus.
Absolutely.
So you need some dedicated time. So let's go to the slides. And the first thing we're going to talk about are the issues associated with the corrective action system in general. So let's take the first one, Jode.
Yeah, so the first one is that organizations aren't initiating corrective actions, or they're just focusing on one type of corrective action or one type of problem.
Absolutely.
So we need to make sure that corrective actions include customer complaints, supplier issues, internal issues, and internal audit issues, as well as external audit issues. So we want to make sure we're capturing all of the issues and all of the problems so that we can get to the root cause and improve the system.
Right. Yeah. How many times do they just decide that they're not going to do a corrective action on a major customer complaint?
Yeah.
And you ask them, boy, did you open up a corrective action? Oh, no.
No, we didn't think. It was too much effort.
Too much effort.
That a lot.
But
too much effort.
But then there are issues associated with that.
Yeah,
or, supplier issues. I've found that you can decrease your supplier issues significantly. I'm talking 40%, folks, if you just use the corrective action process.
Absolutely.
It's painful, but it works.
Right. How many times have you heard, oh, this happened again, this problem happened again, we really need to figure out how to fix it? Well, this is the process to use for that.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the next one?
So the next one is cars aren't addressed. There's a delay reaction. So I think we're all really good at defining problems. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, but what's the next step once you define that? What's the process you use? And the answer is the corrective action system.
Right. And if you're not familiar with the whole corrective action process, go to my other video on continual improvement, which includes corrective action. You'll see the required methodology.
Right.
All right. The next one is the process owners are not actually identified to receive the cars. So there's no assigned process owner in the car system. So the cars go out there and there's no one to actually receive them and feel accountability for that car.
Right. And what usually happens is the quality manager or management rep is the one that ends up following up on it 4 or 5 months later.
Right.
And by then you already have the problem repeating.
Right. And just as a mental note, folks, the quality manager cannot answer all the cars. But at the same time, when we get to the solutions, the quality manager or other folks should be there to coach and mentor. But okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Also, something that is near and dear to my heart is an electronic mechanism.
Yeah.
If you're still doing things on your server or paper-based, God forbid, it's not going to be effective. To help things along, if you want to model a system, I do have a corrective action system that's linked to my website. You're welcome to come on board and use it just to show you how effective a corrective action can be with email notifications, notifications back to the management rep on, the status of corrective actions, reporting, and so forth. But you need at this point an electronic mechanism to keep the communication going.
Yeah, it makes it much more efficient. How many times have you had a form on your desk and you look at it and you're like, oh, wow, this was due 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's
where
old
you can have
school.
an email.
Yeah, not to offend anybody, but it's time. Okay, what's the next one, Jody?
No one knows what to do.
Nobody knows what to do. I mean, frozen.
Yeah.
What's the next step? And that's so typical.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a fear-based. You get something that says you did something wrong.
Right.
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 And what do I do next?
Lock
and a
up.
lot of people just run from it or lock up.
Lock
Absolutely.
up. And here's the news, folks. People will overcome this. They just we're getting ahead again, but with some mentoring and coaching, they will get beyond it. It's not going to be like that forever, but that is a big symptom.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one.
My favorite, unclear problem statements. So if you don't have a clear problem statement, how do you know what to follow up on and define what the
Absolutely.
action is? That's really key. So be really clear with what you're supposed to have, what you're not doing, and what is that detailed evidence behind it, so the folks or the process owners that are implementing that action know what trail to follow.
Right.
Yeah.
Traceability
Yeah.
to the audit evidence
Yeah.
and traceability to the standard requirement. And you know, Jody and I struggle with this every day too. We do
Yeah.
internal audits, we write problem statements, and it's just critical that all the information is there so that when the process owner receives the corrective action, they have a basis for starting the investigation portion.
Right.
And the containment, by the way.
Yeah, so if the problem not being contained, that's another issue. While you're figuring out the root cause of the action, the root cause or action. This is important because sometimes actions can take a year to implement.
You've got
And
to
you wanna-
stop the problem
Yeah,
from
yeah.
occurring as you're
Yeah,
figuring that out.
and this is really important with product, both internally
critically
and supplier and customer. So if
Right.
you have a product issue and your action implementation of your corrective action is going to take a year, you want to make sure over that year you're not shipping bad product.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's the next one. I know this is near and dear to your heart. Again, it's considered a negative thing. I mean, folks, this is not personally, driven and focused on you. It's process, right?
Absolutely.
So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. So, it's like getting a slap on the hand when you receive a corrective action.
Right.
We get that.
Yeah.
It's considered negative, but it gives you the opportunity to fix the problem and also find a solution in place to prevent that problem.
Right.
So let's make sure it doesn't happen again.
And we're focused on the process and the system, not on the individual.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, and then finally, Joe.
Ooh, not having the right people involved in the corrective action process. This is really key. Like we said before, you just have the quality manager or the management rep engaged in all of it. They don't know every process and the details of what happens every day. So you want to make sure you have the process owners and the individuals that are part of that process that has received the corrective action.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. So now what is the impact? Okay,
Yeah.
so we know it's happening because we'll
Yeah.
see repeat issues.
Yeah.
So you never
Yep.
solved the problem to begin with.
Right,
So
right.
repeat issues with suppliers, with customers, and internally.
Yeah.
Also, the whole culture of continual improvement is just not evident. Also, go ahead.
Also, the lack of enthusiasm with the QMS. So, the improvement aspect of it. When people start to see that the system is giving you improved results, then the enthusiasm will increase.
Sure, because there's a sense of reward and
Yeah.
excitement.
Yeah.
Also, you're going to have a difficult time during your
Yeah.
registration audits and during your customer audits.
Yeah.
You are just not going to feel confident. You're not going to face out as if, you've got your act together. So that's another indication.
And it's one of the processes they look at every time.
Right.
So that's one of the areas that an external registration audit or an external registrar is going to look at, because that's going to give them a warm, fuzzy, comfortable feeling that you are getting to the root cause of problems and have a continual improvement culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also people are like, they head for the hills.
Yeah.
I'm in trouble now.
Yeah.
So you can never find, Mike or Jerry or Scott or Susie. Like they're never available because
Right.
they sense that they're personally in trouble.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So
And they
that
say,
kind of
"No,
culture.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of culture tells you, okay, it's not well adopted. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then we already talked about supplier issues not getting fixed and customer satisfaction concerns not getting addressed.
Right.
Okay, so let's shift to the positive. Let's talk about some potential solutions. And here we go.
Yay, my favorite,
Yeah.
corrective action training. You can never get too much training.
You really
Yeah.
can't. And you
Yeah.
know what? We're going to talk about this later in
Yeah.
internal auditing, but we get retrained multiple times a year, and we've been doing this for over 25 years.
Yeah.
It's so important to just keep that training dynamic. There's always something to learn.
Right. And also identify a car process owner. So
Definitely.
we did say everybody needs to be engaged and involved in the process, but you want to have that one person that understands the corrective action process and what's required and what makes a good action and effective action.
And to oversee the effectiveness.
Yeah.
Is it working? Are we
Yeah,
closing
yeah.
out the corrective actions? Who
And-
needs help?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
speaking of help, having mentors, because a lot of times folks just need some coaching. Sometimes they might need you to just listen and then help them formulate the responses. And in many cases, after the first or second time, they've got it.
Right.
You'll still have those stragglers who'll say, I need you, I have a
Right,
car, come to
right.
my office. But that's not going to happen.
Right.
Predominantly, you're going to coach folks and then they're going to be fine and ready to go on their
Practice.
own.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Also, have group corrective action meetings. So some
That's
corrective
helpful.
actions may be huge.
Right.
It may not just be one department. It could be a cross-functional corrective action, especially product related. It could be engineering, manufacturing, supplier, and customer related. So to have that whole team, cross-functional team, to get together to brainstorm ideas to actually get to the root cause is very important for
Very
an effective
helpful. Yeah.
process.
And then obtain a senior level support manager if needed. Someone who's going to really stand behind you and give you that leverage and that muscle in case you're having issues. And we talked about obtaining an electronic corrective action system. And then finally, trending issues to highlight improvement.
Right. So it's one thing to have, 40 corrective actions, but is there a critical trend that you can identify? So say you've got 10 supplier corrective actions, maybe they all have the same issue. You want to focus in on that.
The thing is with corrective actions is it is subjective when we initiate it. So you might not get good factual data. You could go back to your nonconformities, which are more factual, your customer returns, which are more factual, your supplier issues, trend those, and then take a look at, when we applied corrective action and whether or not we actually caused an impact. So that's really key.
Yeah.
Okay, we threw a lot at you, so to kind of close this out. Jody, what do you think?
Yeah, it's very overwhelming to begin with. But once you get over that hurdle of being really overwhelmed and have this heavy feeling and you start to see the impact that a corrective action system can have both on your quality management system and your operations, and how it can impact supplier satisfaction, customer satisfaction. It's really one of the key requirements of a quality management system in an organization to keep it going and sustaining it and improving it.
And then the reality of this is whenever you approach this, either you are initiating a new corrective action system or you have to revamp an existing one that has kind of gone south, you will have a lot of corrective actions initially. But I promise you, if you apply the methodology effectively, your corrective actions will decrease and then you'll get more into the mode of continual improvement. And then it gets exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And then you're really kind of driving a positive culture.
Yep.
Good. Well, thanks again, Jody.
You're welcome.
And I'll see you at the next series.
Can't wait.
All right, good. Bye-bye.
Bye.